Hello, today I'm talking to Brandi Lytle. Brandi is a wife, dog mom, aunt, host mom, and an infertile woman who has redefined what momhood means to her. She's the creator of Not So Mommy, where she blogs about her childless journey and her perfectly imperfect life. Brandi, hi. It's nice to
Hi,
see you today.
nice to see you.
So, would you start by just giving us a little overview of your journey as to how you came to be sitting here talking to me today?
Sure. Um, my husband and I started trying to conceive 3 years into our marriage. We were in our late 20s and thought that it was the right time for us to go ahead and grow our family. We didn't tell our extended family. We wanted it to be a surprise. 6 months in, when nothing had happened, we decided to go ahead and tell everyone that we were trying. 2 years in, when nothing had worked out, we decided to go visit an infertility specialist. I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I had a surgery for that. My husband had some problems as well. And we were given the diagnosis of severe infertility. So we went ahead and tried infertility treatments. We stuck with IUI and did about 6 or 7 rounds of that. Nothing was working. We considered adoption, all different types of adoption. And 10 years into our journey, my husband asked if we could stop and just enjoy our life the way that it was. And so back in 2014, I was trying to accept that I would never have biological kids, that we weren't going to adopt. I was embracing my role as a dog mom. And then 5 years later, here I am. I've been blogging in August, it'll be a year, talking about this infertility and childless journey. And during those 5 years, I not only have been a dog mom, but became a host mom, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's go straight into that now, because I know on your website you list a lot of different ways to be not so mommy, and you talk
Mhm.
about being an aunt and being a dog mom and all kinds of things. And one of the things that I know you did, which I think is really fascinating, is you were a host mom to a foreign exchange student. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. Through all of the different ways my husband and I tried to have a kid, being host parents and hosting a foreign exchange student wasn't something that we considered, which it's a very different way to have a parenting role, because obviously the student has parents and they have a loving family and they're only going to be with you for a short time. But we went to this cooking class and we met a foreign exchange student, and her host mom happened to be the local coordinator for our area. And as we got to talking to them, my husband and I just looked at each other and thought we could do this. And so I found the paperwork online, I filled it out, and literally 2 months later, Bruna was with us. And she lived with us for 6 months. She arrived when she was 16. She turned 17 just a few weeks after. And we spent 6 months just getting to know each other. And
Mhm.
really, we became a family. We have visited her in Brazil. She's going to be coming to visit us again in just a few weeks. It was an amazing experience, and it allowed us, like I said, to have that parent role, to enroll in school. She went to prom, to have some interactions with other families who had exchange students. It was just an incredible experience.
That's fantastic. I just love that story. It's what a great experience.
Yes.
I know that the a lot of people go through a period where they feel like being around children is just too difficult. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that for you and sort of the other side of that experience? And were there times that made it harder for you? Do you think that it helped your healing journey?
Um, I it became difficult for me to be around little kids during our journey. I was very active in the children's ministry at church, and I was working with 2, 3-year-olds, with kindergartners. And there came a time, really kind of after we accepted that we weren't going to have children, that I no longer wanted to be around all of the little ones. Now, I was a high school teacher, and that did pose some problems. There were times it was very difficult for me to be around all of the kids, but in another sense, it gave me a way to have connections with children since I didn't have any at home. And so there was the helping and the hurting in both of those. We were a good year into accepting our childless life when Bruna came to us. And at that point, I really had come to terms that we weren't going to adopt or do any more fertility treatments. So that was completely off the table. So I just completely embraced that this was an opportunity for me to have what I call a 2-legged kid in our house, because we have the 4-legged fur baby. This was our time to have a 2-legged kid. And for me, I say I didn't view it through the eyes of this would be great if we could do it with our own kid. I had gone through that a little bit with my nieces in going through experiences with them, but just always waiting and hoping and wishing that it could be our own. But with Bruna, I just felt like it was our own kid. And so I just fully embraced those moments that we were able to have with her.
Fantastic. That's great. What a great influence you must have been on her life as well. It sounds like you gave her a great experience and she benefited as well.
Yeah, we think so, and we hope so. I mean, she told us when she left that she knew it would be a good experience, but that she really didn't expect us to become family, and she didn't expect to have such a connection. And we just all really, really felt it, including her parents in Brazil. We just consider them and her sister a part of our extended family now.
That's great. The fact that she's coming back again to see you says that you made a good impact on her. That's great. So tell us a little bit, if you would, about Not So Mommy, about your website. And you said it was a year ago that you started that.
Yeah, it's been almost a year.
So tell us what you're doing there. When people go over there, what are they going to find?
Well, I had 2 big goals when I started blogging. I guess the biggest goal was I didn't want anybody to feel alone. So many times when you're going through infertility and childlessness, you feel like you're the only person out there and there's nobody else like you. So I really wanted people to be able to realize that somebody else has gone through this as well. And there's really a big community out there once you get connected. But I wanted those struggling to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that there are good things to be found in the world, and that there are some great plan Bs out there. And so one of the things I do every Monday is I share what I call good things. I recently shared about childless men and how my husband supported me, but I also share silly things. Like one week on my birthday, I shared about weird things about me. Like I really don't like belly buttons. I think they're kind of gross. And so I share silly things just to make you smile. And then I talk a lot about how I figured out Plan B with, like you've said, being an aunt and a dog mom and a host mom and a wife, and try to just show that there's you can find a different perspective and a different way to look at things as you go through your healing process. It's not all perfect and wonderful. I had a wobble back in December, a fairly big one. I wrote about that because I want it to be real and authentic. But I do like to try to focus on the good and the moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, and that's an essential part of being able to move forward, but it's also not necessarily easy. So you talk about, the wobble that you had. I mean, what are some of the really the hardest challenges that you faced in trying to get to where you are now, which is clearly, a place of acceptance and have found a way to, find a different way of living and be very positive about that, which is fantastic. But I know, anybody who's been through this knows that that's not an easy place to get to. So could you talk a little bit about some of the things that were perhaps the most challenging for you, and maybe how you sort of worked your way through those?
Sure. The accepting that we were going to be childless was a big hurdle for me. Like I said, my husband was the one who asked if we could please stop and just accept our life. And so I wanted to do that. I loved my husband, and I knew that, we had been trying for 10 years. That was a long time. And I didn't want to remain in this I'll be happy when, but it was still difficult to let go of that. And I had a really turning point moment one day at work. I was on my planning period. I was trying to grade papers. It was my first year at this new school. I had been teaching for a while, but it was my first year there. And my assistant principal, who did my observations, walked in, and I was really struggling at that moment. And she asked me if everything was okay. I said it was fine. She questioned a little bit more. I really didn't want to have this difficult conversation. I knew that I would cry with her, and she was a very strong, no-nonsense woman, and this is my first year there. But she seemed genuine in her concern. And so I gave her the very brief version that we couldn't have kids, and my husband had said he didn't want to adopt, and I was trying to figure all of this out. And she asked me a really important question. She said, "So, would you rather have a baby and no husband, or a husband and no baby?" And I had already thought about that, and I had already made my decision. And I told her I would rather have a husband and no baby. And so she told me, then you gotta let it go. You got to quit thinking about it, and you've got to just accept that and get on with your life. And I knew that, but having someone really tell me that made it to where when I started having those conversations in my head, I reminded myself that I made a decision, and so I need to move forward with that decision. During our infertility battle, I was really struggling and feeling like I wasn't connecting with my students. And that's when Good Things came about, which I still do on my blog. Another teacher told me about Good Things. And so we would start Mondays off sharing. And the kids all had to tell one good thing that happened over the weekend for them. And I did too. And it was a struggle. There were some weeks on the way to work where I was like, what am I going to tell these kids? It's like, we had fajitas on Friday. That'll be my good thing. But it got easier and easier. And then I started challenging myself to say a different good thing to every class. So then I had to come up with 6 different good things. Mm-hmm. And so as I started focusing on the positive in life, then when I realized, okay, I've chosen my husband, I've chosen this life, we're going to move forward. Then I was able to start focusing on the positive things of that life, which isn't one that I really expected or wanted, but it's what it is, and I wanted to enjoy it.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible when you have somebody in your life who tells you what you don't want to hear it, but right. It turns out to be just the very thing that you needed to hear.
Yes.
I had a friend, I know I've told this story before, but I had a friend who said to me, and she actually didn't know what we were going through exactly, but I think she sort of sensed, and she said, she and her husband, she said, we're a family of 2. We're still a family. We're just a family of 2. Mm-hmm. And exactly. I didn't know that that's what I needed to hear, but that message stuck with me. And as I was dealing with some of the more challenging times, like, yeah, I have a family. I exactly. have a family. That might not look like the idea of the family that I had in mind, but it's still a family. We yes. come in all shapes and sizes. Yeah.
Yes, we do. And I've tried to change my language a little bit, and instead of saying, the to start a family, build your family or grow your family, because like you said, families are all different shapes and sizes. Even if you're not married, you still have a family. You may have a family with friends or with your animals. But, to have this limited view of what family is, it's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and I found that myself, that I have built, my blood family are all on the other side of the world, as you know. So I have been building my family here with friends. And the great thing about that is you then get to choose your family.
Yeah,
you don't get stuck with the weird auntie or the weird uncle. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I love the idea of the good things. I got talked, and I have a writing group, and I got talked into doing a morning gratitude practice where I have to list 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I fought that idea. It's like, some days I don't want to be grateful. I want to reserve the right to wake up grumpy and not be grateful because everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
But when you dig down and find something that is good in your life, or something that you are grateful for, there's always something there, isn't there? There's always something there. And even if it is just good coffee or tacos on Friday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to find, and even if it's little, you just cling to that little bitty thing, and there really, the good does outweigh the bad. Sometimes, depending on where we're at, we just have to look for it a little bit more.
Yeah. Some days you have to dig a little harder for it, don't you?
Yes.
So if you were, if you were speaking to somebody who was just at the sort of the beginning of their journey and starting to figure out how to come to terms with not having children, or how to find acceptance, or how to look for something good and positive, what's the one piece of advice that you would give that you wish that you had been given, even if you hadn't been willing to hear it at that time?
The idea of letting go, which is what that my principal gave to me, that you're not giving up, that you're just letting go and pursuing a different different life, a different dream, because you can find new dreams, and that there are some positives to being childless. And when you're really hurting, you can't see them, you don't see them, maybe you don't want to see them. But I wrote a blog called The Bright Sides of Infertility, and it's one of the most popular ones. And I just pointed out simple things like, I really am happy that I can sleep in on Saturday. I like to sleep. And, I like that my husband and I can go on a date on Friday night without having to worry about a babysitter. There's like 11 or 12 things that I listed on there that are good things about not having kids. And I know sometimes, because it is a grieving process that you're going through, it can seem as if I say there's something good, then I really didn't want these kids, or I didn't try hard enough. And that's not the case. It's just allowing yourself to let go and to move forward and to enjoy the way that your life is. It doesn't mean that you didn't really want this. It just means that you've realized that you're going to have to pursue a different path.
It's great advice. It's great advice. Thank you. So what can we expect from you and Not So Mommy in the future?
Well, I am getting ready to start a series about not so helpful advice. I have lots of ideas floating around in my head about that one. And then I also have a couple of book ideas that are floating around. And one of them I'm really getting ready to start to put pen to paper. And so I'm very hopeful that in the next few months, I can figure out this whole ebook thing and get that out there. I definitely want to continue blogging. I plan on, excuse me, being a part of World Childless Week. Nikki Fletcher and I have connected, and she does the Childless-not-by-choice magazine. And I want to continue writing and working with her. So I've really found a great tribe of people over these past few months, and I want to keep connecting with them and growing the Not So Mommy family, because that just grows the entire childless community family.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Okay, so people can find you at notsomommy.com.
Yes.
And you are on Instagram?
Yes, I'm on every
You're
Instagram,
on everything.
Facebook, and Instagram and Facebook are my biggest ones.
Okay, I'm going to put links in the post underneath this video so that people can find you.
Wonderful.
Brandi, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, fortunately, I can edit.